The rain had been relentless all evening, drumming steadily against the cracked windows of Mercy Hospital as Maya Bennett pulled her coat tighter and stepped inside the dimly lit lobby. The hospital loomed like a forgotten fortress. Its peeling paint and faded signage whispered of decades of neglect. Despite the storm outside, the air inside was unnervingly cold, carrying a sterile scent mingled faintly with something metallic, like dried blood. Maya glanced at her watch. Midnight was still an hour away, but the night already felt suspended between reality and nightmare. She was a new nurse, just transferred here after a series of strange events at her last job, odd disappearances and inexplicable breakdowns she preferred not to mention. Mercy was supposed to be a fresh start, but from the moment she entered, a creeping unease wound itself tight in her chest. Her footsteps echoed hollowly down the long corridor as she made her way toward the nursing station. The flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, some sputtering and casting long, distorted shadows that danced like ghosts on the walls. She paused near a row of empty gurneys, suddenly aware of a sudden chill her breath misted in the air. On one stretcher lay a blood-stained hospital gown, perfectly folded as if waiting for its owner. But no one was around. A faint whisper brushed her ear, barely audible, like a sigh or a warning. Maya spun around, heart pounding. The hallway was empty. Only the sound of distant thunder filled the silence. At the nursing station, the night security guard, Eli Turner, a tall man with tired eyes and a permanent scowl, watched her closely, but said nothing. She caught him muttering under his breath, "Not another one." His gaze flicked to the clock, 11:10 p.m. "Long night ahead," Maya said, trying to sound confident. Eli shrugged, eyes narrowing. "This place, it's got a way of getting under your skin. You'll see." Before Maya could ask what he meant, the intercom crackled and died mid-sentence, replaced by a burst of static and then a chilling, distorted voice whispering, "Leave before midnight." Maya's blood ran cold. She looked to Eli, but he avoided her gaze. She tucked the message away, telling herself it was a prank or a malfunction. Yet as the minutes crawled by, strange things continued. Lights flickered violently, monitors beeped erratically in empty rooms, and distant footsteps echoed behind locked doors. Near the end of the hall, she noticed a set of double doors leading to the basement. They were slightly ajar, revealing only darkness beyond. From deep below came a sudden, piercing scream, a sound so raw and desperate it froze her in place. She rushed toward it, but found only silence and an empty corridor. When she returned, slipped under her office door was a small folded note. Hands trembling, Maya unfolded it. In neat, deliberate handwriting were the words, "You don't belong here. Leave before midnight." Panic surged through her veins, but the note vanished the moment she blinked, as if swallowed by the air itself. Maya sat down, gripping the edge of the desk, mind racing. The whispered warnings, the eerie silences, the shadows that didn't quite match the flickering lights. It was all too much to be coincidence. But what truly unsettled her was a sudden, clear image flashing through her mind. A woman, wearing that same blood-stained gown, standing at the end of the hallway, eyes hollow and pleading. Maya shook her head, pushing away the vision. She needed to stay focused. Mercy Hospital had secrets, dark ones rooted deep in its walls, and tonight she was about to uncover the first of many. The clock on the wall ticked toward midnight. The real nightmare was just beginning. The morning sun bled weakly through Mercy Hospital's grimy windows, but Maya Bennett's world remained trapped in shadows. She had survived her first night, but the strange voices, cold touches, and that cryptic warning gnawed relentlessly at her mind. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally. Every whisper felt like it was calling her name. Her first task that day was to check the patient rooms, but the corridors felt heavier thick with a silence that pressed on her chest. The flickering fluorescent lights cast uneven glows that made the walls pulse with unseen movement. Maya's steps faltered as she approached room 217. The door stood slightly ajar, and a faint scent, mingled with antiseptic and something rotting, lingered in the air. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Shadow darted just past the hallway's end. She blinked, and it was gone. Nerves pricking, Maya pushed open the door fully. The room was empty, but the patient monitor beeped erratically, flatlining one moment, spiking the next. According to the charts, no patient was assigned here. On the bedside table lay a worn, leather-bound diary, its cracked cover yellowed with age. Curious, Maya flipped it open. The cramped handwriting inside belonged to Clara Finch, a nurse who had worked here over a decade ago. The entries began routinely notes on patients and shifts, but soon darkened. Clara described voices calling her from empty rooms, figures lurking just out of sight, and the oppressive sensation of being watched. The final entry chilled Maya to the bone. They want me to join them. I hear my name whispered in the dark, but no one is there. Mercy Hospital is a cage. If you find this, beware the midnight hour. Maya closed the diary, her breath hitching. Suddenly, the temperature in the room plunged, her breath clouding before her eyes. The heart monitor beeped again, alive and erratic, despite the absence of a patient. A knock at the door startled her. Opening it, she found Sophie Lang, a fellow nurse from her shift, pale and shaking. "Did you hear about Eli?" Sophie whispered urgently. "He vanished last night. No one knows how." Maya's heart tightened. "Vanished? During your shift?" Sophie nodded. "He was making rounds, then just ... gone. They found his radio in the security room, but it only broadcast static and strange messages." Maya's thoughts flew back to the distorted voice on the intercom. Leave before midnight. Later that day, while checking supplies in a locked storage room, Maya heard frantic tapping behind the door. She opened it, but the room was empty, except for a smear of blood across the floor and walls. A desperate, unreadable message in crimson. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "They're watching. Trust no one." Maya's hands trembled. Mercy Hospital was alive in ways she couldn't explain, feeding on fear and secrets. She confided in Walter Crane, the janitor, who listened with a shadowed gaze. "You don't want to dig too deep," he warned. "This place doesn't just trap bodies, it traps souls, and some never leave." Maya looked at him, questions swirling. What happened here? Why am I hearing these voices? Walter's voice was barely a whisper. "Because, Maya, you're connected. The spirits see you, and they need you. But beware, some don't want to be helped." That night, drawn inexplicably to the chapel beneath the hospital, a place she had avoided before, Maya stepped into a frozen moment in time. Dust-coated broken pews, fractured stained glass, scattered light like broken dreams, and ancient symbols glowed faintly on the stone floor. Whispers swirled around her, unintelligible but urgent. The air thickened. Suddenly, a cold hand gripped her wrist, a desperate spirit pulling her toward the altar. Visions flooded her mind. A failed ritual, anguished screams, the hospital flooding with shadows. The spirit's agony was a plea for release. Maya staggered back, gasping. The spirits weren't just echoes of the past. They were trapped in endless torment, and she was the key to breaking their cycle. As she fled, a sinister presence watched from the darkness, an evil waiting patiently for the moment to claim her. Days bled into nights as Maya Bennett found herself sinking deeper into Mercy Hospital's suffocating grasp. The diary of Clara Finch weighed heavily in her bag, a thread linking her to the restless souls imprisoned by time and terror. The lines between the living and the dead blurred with each passing hour. Determined to uncover the truth, Maya sought out the hospital archives, a forgotten room buried deep beneath the cracked floors. Shelves bowed under decades of dust-covered files, yellowed photographs, and brittle ledgers chronicling Mercy's darkest moments. Her fingers trembled as she sifted through reports of inexplicable patient deaths, sudden disappearances, and hushed rumors of secret experiments conducted long ago. Among the papers, a faded document stood out, an account of a ritual performed by staff desperate to cleanse the hospital of its growing evil. The report described how the ritual took place in the underground chapel, a desperate attempt to seal away the malevolent force. But something went terribly wrong. The ritual was interrupted, and instead of sealing the darkness, it unleashed an even greater horror. According to the files, several participants suffered psychological collapse, plagued by horrifying visions and relentless voices. Many vanished without a trace during or soon after the ceremony. Maya's heart pounded. Could Clara Finch have been one of them? Had the failed ritual doomed Mercy to eternal torment? Later, Maya returned to Walter Crane, the janitor, whose weathered face bore the marks of decades spent in silent watchfulness. His eyes, clouded yet resolute, met hers with a mixture of sorrow and warning. "The ritual wasn't just a prayer," Walter murmured. "It was a desperate gamble with dark forces. When it failed, Mercy became a cage for souls, and for something else." He leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. "The voices you hear? They're not just memories. They're commands. They want to drag the living into their world." Maya's breath caught. "Why me? Why now?" Walter's gaze softened. "Because you're sensitive. The spirits see you. They need you to help, or they might drag you down with them. But not all of them want to be saved. That night, an irresistible pull drew Maya once more to the chapel beneath the hospital. As she crossed the threshold, the weight of history pressed on her chest. Dusty pews stood like sentinels. Broken stained glass cast fractured, ghostly colors, and cryptic symbols pulsed faintly beneath her feet. Whispers gathered around her, frantic, desperate, urgent. Before she could react, a cold, trembling hand grasped her wrist. Visions crashed over her. The ritual's failure, screams frozen in time, a flood of shadows swallowing the hospital whole. The spirit's anguish pierced her soul, a plea for release, for salvation. Maya staggered back, gasping for breath. She knew now the spirits were trapped, cursed to end the suffering, and she was the only one who could break the cycle. But from the shadows, something darker watched and waited, the malevolent force feeding on pain and fear, ready to claim her when the time came. The hospital seemed to hold its breath as Maya Bennett began her next night shift. The weight of the truths she had uncovered, the failed ritual, the trapped spirits, and the lurking evil pressed heavily on her mind, making every step feel like she walked through quicksand. At 11:45 p.m., Mercy Hospital's corridors were unnervingly silent, but charged with unseen energy. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead sputtered and buzzed, casting jittery shadows that seemed to crawl like living things along the peeling walls. Maya made her way toward the security office, hoping to check on Eli Turner, the night guard, who had disappeared without explanation days before. But the door was locked tight. She rapped sharply, and only silence answered. Suddenly, the hospital's intercom crackled to life, filling the halls with a distorted, chilling voice. "Leave before the clock strikes 12. Maya's heart thundered in her chest. She darted down the corridor toward the security office, only to find Eli's radio lying abandoned on the floor. Static hissed, punctuated by frantic whispers and screams she couldn't decipher. The lights flickered and then died. Total darkness swallowed the hallway. Maya fumbled for her flashlight, its beam cutting a narrow swath through the blackness. The temperature dropped suddenly, her breath misting in the frigid air. Ahead, the double doors to the basement creaked open slowly, revealing an abyssal darkness below. Guttural moan echoed from its depths, chilling Maya to her core. She wanted to turn away, but duty and dread held her feet rooted to the spot. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream tore through the silence, a sound so primal and desperate it froze her in place. Then, a pale, twisted hand lunged from the darkness, grasping Maya's ankle with crushing force. She screamed and wrenched free, stumbling backward. The hallway was empty again. Near the nurse's station, Maya froze. The walls were smeared with fresh, blood-red graffiti. "Leave before midnight or join us." Her skin crawled as the letters seemed to pulse, alive with malevolent intent. Suddenly, the hospital bell silent for years rang out 12 sharp chimes. The sound echoed like a death knell. Maya's flashlight flickered violently. In the fleeting flashes, she saw shadowy figures emerging from the wall's twisted faces, frozen in agony. Reaching out with grasping hands, she ran. The hospital twisted into a shifting maze. Corridors stretched impossibly long. Doors slammed shut before her, windows fogged with icy breath, and ghostly whispers clawed at her ears. When she burst into the main lobby, the lights snapped back on, and the apparitions vanished as if they had never been. But Maya knew the terror had only just begun. Mercy Hospital had marked her now, and somewhere, deep in the darkness, a presence smiled. Mercy Hospital was no longer just a building to Maya Bennett. It had become a living nightmare. Every step she took echoed with unseen eyes watching, every shadow twisted with silent agony. Determined to confront the terror, Maya steeled herself and returned to room 217, the room where the heart monitor had mysteriously flatlined and spiked. She pushed open the door cautiously. The air inside was heavy, cold, and suffused with a low hum that vibrated through her bones. Faint whispers swirled, voices tangled in confusion and endless pain. Flickering figures appeared before her eyes, ghostly reenactments of their final moments. A man gasped for breath, clutching his throat as if drowning in invisible water. A woman writhed silently on the bed, her eyes wide with terror, but unable to cry out. Maya's heart clenched with sorrow. The man's eyes locked onto hers, pleading silently. But before she could reach out, his form convulsed and shattered into shards of cold light that scattered like dust. The room darkened sharply. The door slammed shut behind Maya, locking with a deafening click. Panic surged, but she forced herself to steady her breathing. Then came the screams, sharp, visceral, replaying the spirit's eternal torment. From the corner emerged a tall, gaunt figure with eyes black as voids, an entity of pure malevolence. It moved with unnatural grace, suffocating the air around it. This was no trapped soul. It was the darkness itself, feeding on Mercy's pain and fear. Maya tried to back away, but the room twisted and warped. Shadows morphed into grotesque faces that whispered her name. Her grip on reality fractured as the entity reached for her mind, attempting possession. Visions of her own death flooded her thoughts, twisted, and silent screams swallowed by darkness. Desperate, Maya grabbed Clara Finch's diary and read aloud a passage of plea for protection scrawled in frantic script. The entity shrieked in rage and retreated into the shadows. Breath ragged, Maya fled the room. Later, she found Dr. Harold Mason, the skeptical doctor, lying motionless in a supply closet. His face was frozen in terror, his eyes glassy and lifeless. No one else had seen him since the previous night. Kneeling beside him, Maya's dread deepened. Mercy Hospital's evil was real, and it was killing those who refused to believe. She was running out of time. The shadows inside Mercy Hospital had grown darker and more threatening, swallowing every flicker of hope. After the harrowing encounter with the malevolent entity and the death of Dr. Harold Mason, Maya Bennett felt the walls closing in. She knew she needed answers, and there was only one person who might hold them: Walter Crane, the janitor. Maya found Walter in the cluttered basement storage room. His figure hunched beneath flickering lights, his face etched with decades of sorrow and guilt. His eyes, however, held a fierce determination. "You've seen it, haven't you?" Walter said quietly, as if expecting her. Maya nodded. "Tell me what really happened here. About the ritual, the artifact, everything." Walter sighed deeply and motioned for her to follow him through narrow corridors and rusty pipes dripping with cold water. Eventually, they reached a heavy metal door that creaked open to reveal the underground chapel, the very place the ritual had been performed. The room was frozen in time. Dust-coated pews, broken stained glass casting fractured light over a stone altar etched with strange symbols. Maya felt a dark pulse beneath her feet, a heartbeat from something ancient and malevolent. Walter pointed to a small, blackened object resting atop the altar. This artifact was supposed to contain the darkness. Instead, it became its prison, and its weapon. Maya's fingers trembled as she gazed at the artifact, which pulsed faintly as if alive. Walter's face darkened. "I was part of the ritual. We thought we could control it, but the evil corrupted us. Some of us tried to escape, but it trapped us here, caught between life and death." He looked into her eyes, desperation flickering within. "That's why I stayed behind, to guard this place and stop anyone from unleashing the full horror. But now you're here. The spirits call to you because you're the only one who can destroy it." Maya swallowed hard. "What if I don't? What happens then?" Walter's voice was grave. "The evil grows stronger, feeding on fear and pain. Mercy will become a tomb for all who enter, and it will claim you too." Suddenly, the air shifted, a chilling presence slipping through the chapel like smoke. The malevolent entity emerged, eyes gleaming with cold hunger. Walter stepped forward, blocking its path. "I won't let it have you." A fierce battle erupted. Walter fought valiantly, but the darkness overwhelmed him. With a final, pained glance at Maya, he was consumed by the shadows. Maya stood frozen, the artifact's pulse racing on the altar. The janitor's sacrifice was only the beginning. Her fate and Mercy Hospital's depended on destroying the artifact before midnight. Midnight was closing in, and Mercy Hospital's very walls seemed to pulse with malevolent life. Maya Bennett's heart hammered in her chest as she raced through the twisting, shifting corridors, the artifact clutched tightly in her trembling hands. It throbbed like a dark heartbeat, a sinister rhythm that matched the mounting dread inside her. The hospital had become a nightmare made flesh. Hallways stretched and contracted, ceilings dripped with a cold black ichor, and distant screams mixed with the moans of trapped souls echoing through the air. Maya could barely distinguish between the real and the unreal. With every step, terrifying visions assaulted her. Herself dying over and over, twisted in agony, screens swallowed by shadows. Were these warnings or inevitable fates? Suddenly, the malevolent entity emerged, an amorphous mass of writhing shadows and glowing eyes. It blocked her path, its voice a chorus of anguished whispers. "Destroy the artifact." "And you destroy yourself?" The weight of those words crushed Maya's spirit. She realized the terrible truth. The artifact was bound to her very existence. Destroying it meant severing a connection as deep as her own heartbeat. But letting the darkness live was unthinkable. Summoning every ounce of strength, Maya charged forward, gripping the artifact tightly. The entity lashed out, shadowy tendrils wrapping around her, sapping her strength, blurring her vision. Memories flooded her mind, her fears, her pain, her fight for survival. At the chapel's altar, she knelt, hands shaking. With a cry, she smashed the artifact against the cold stone. Light and darkness exploded around her in a blinding surge. When the pain faded, Maya gasped for air. The chapel was silent still. The oppressive weight that had hung over Mercy was lifted. The trapped souls were gone, finally freed. But as she looked down, horror gripped her. Her reflection shimmered in a broken stained glass shard. Her eyes, once vibrant and alive, were now pitch black, endless voids. The entity's final whisper echoed in her mind. She was now bound to Mercy Hospital, its new guardian. Outside, dawn crept slowly over the hospital, bathing it in pale light. But inside, the nightmare was far from over. The first pale light of dawn seeped weakly through Mercy Hospital's cracked windows, casting long shadows over the empty halls. The building, once heavy with torment and fear, now lay eerily silent. The oppressive darkness lifted, but not entirely gone. Outside, a rescue team arrived, their radios crackling as they cautiously entered the building. Among them was Nina Harper, a young nurse who moved with wary steps, sensing the weight of unseen eyes watching. In the main lobby, they found Maya Bennett's jacket folded neatly on a blood-stained bench. There was no sign of Maya herself, no pulse, no breath, no whisper. Nina stepped quietly into the chapel where the artifact had once rested. The altar was cracked and scarred, the cold stone etched with signs of a long-fought battle. Then, from the shadows, a soft glow began to form, an ethereal figure, translucent yet unmistakably human. It was Maya. Her eyes, once full of fear and resolve, now gleamed with an unnatural blackness. She moved silently, a ghost trapped between worlds, forever bound to Mercy Hospital. Outside, Walter Crane's worn coat hung on a fence post like a silent guardian, watching over the now quiet building. Nearby, a new patient arrived, clutching a crumpled note. The words were chillingly familiar. "You don't belong here. Leave before midnight." The cycle was far from broken. As Nina glanced back toward the hospital, a cold wind whispered through the trees, carrying a faint, haunting voice. "Stay. Stay." Mercy Hospital waited, patient and eternal.